Do you ever feel like life is just constantly happening to you? Like, no matter how hard you try, you end up right back in that same exhausting place, feeling small, stuck, powerless, and like you're always the one getting the short end of the stick? If you've ever caught yourself thinking, why does this always happen to me? Or why are people always treating me this way? You're in the right place. Today, I'm going to answer those questions and, why you feel like a victim and why you feel powerless, where it comes from, and most importantly, what you can actually do to change it. We're going to get into the neuroscience, of course, the childhood piece, and I'm going to give you concrete tools you can start using today. So stay tuned. Hello, welcome back to the podcast. You know who I am, Dr. Abby Medcalf. Great to have you here. And once again, this was a wonderful topic that came out of my One Love Collective on Substack, my community there. And it's such a good one. So let's get to it. So what does it actually mean to feel like a victim? I think I want to start there first. So if you always feel like stuff just always seems to happen to you. Like you're always fighting something, always at the mercy of other people's moods. Maybe always the one who ends up hurt or with like bad luck. You're going to really relate to today's little chat that we're going to have. So, and before we get too deep, I want to say this. Most people, I think, who are living in a victim mentality don't know it. You're like a fish who doesn't know it's wet. And it's just how life is in your world. And this is just how people treat you. This is just who you are, maybe you even think. The problem that I really see the most is that acting like a victim is ubiquitous. It's everywhere these days. It's so pervasive. It's in our language. It's in everything. So it seems really normal. And I'll say, especially here in the United States, I work with people in different parts of the world and have lived in different parts of the world and worked in different parts of the world. And I find it, I don't know, and especially I would say in the last 5 to 10 years here in the United States, it's incredible how much I think it's just, again, become so almost cultural, I hate to say. So I'm really happy we're talking about this today. Okay, so let's define what we're talking about because I want to say this first, feeling victimized and having a victim mentality are two different things. Sometimes people genuinely mistreat you. Real harm is real. I'm not asking you to talk yourself out of that. But a victim mentality is something different. It's when powerlessness stops being a response to a specific situation and becomes the lens you apply to your whole life, your whole world. Okay? So really, really make sure you have that. So we're being clear about who I'm talking about. It's the difference between this person treated me unfairly and people always treat me unfairly. It's the difference between that didn't work out and things never work out for me. I always have the worst luck. People are mean. People suck. I hate when I hear that because I don't suck. I'm not mean. So when that's when powerlessness becomes your identity, you really stop noticing you're doing it and you start organizing your entire self-concept around being someone things happen to. And believe me, you'll find evidence of it everywhere. I'm going to quickly do a shout out to the reticular activating system, your RAS, your reticular activating system. Your RAS, it's part of your brain. It's the base of your forebasal ganglia, blah, blah, blah. But basically your RAS is, I've talked about this a lot, but I'm going to say it again. It's a filter between your conscious and your subconscious mind. And so what happens is that anything you think about consciously, it gets sent to your subconscious to look for it because, your subconscious does most of the work every day. There's so much coming at your consciousness all the time. You wouldn't be able to get out of bed if you let all that input in. So, and remember that other piece of research by Timothy Wilson, the great Timothy Wilson, our conscious brains process information at a rate of 40 bits per second, while our subconscious brains process information at a rate of 11 million bits per second. Yes. So your conscious brain is always kind of, what you think about. That's what I mean by your conscious brain versus your subconscious is what you don't realize you're thinking about or what you don't realize you notice. So all day you're consciously taking in things and thinking about things, and it's like it sends it to your subconscious to look for those things. And what is the example I always give? If you're thinking of buying a certain kind of car, you'll suddenly see it everywhere. You will. If you're thinking about, I want to buy a white Tesla, I want to buy a white Tesla, you will see white Teslas everywhere. You will see that exact model, whatever, a gray Nissan Pathfinder, you will see gray Nissan Pathfinders on the road. It's not because there's more of those cars. They didn't start making more. It's because you consciously thought of something, it sent it as an order or an instruction to your subconscious to look for that thing, and it's suddenly showing up everywhere. And the same thing happens when you think, I have bad luck, I'm a victim, men suck, women are all gold diggers, I don't know, whatever you think, that gets sent as an order to your subconscious to look for that thing, and you will find evidence of it everywhere. And what's really important about this is that your brain will, in attempts to be efficient, will filter out anything that goes against it. So if you think my partner is always criticizing me, anytime your partner is not criticizing you, when they're being affectionate or loving or kind or complimentary or whatever, guess what? You're like Teflon. You won't notice it. And it happens all the time. I'll be doing work maybe with a couple, and let's say that the husband will say, you don't appreciate me. And the wife will say, like, what are you talking about? I did this, that, and she'll give like 5 examples of ways she showed appreciation in the last week. And he'll literally go, yeah, it's like it doesn't even go in. And even if I stop and say to him, like, do you see what she's saying? He's sort of like, he's not really believing it. And we also have a confirmation bias, of course, which is a psychological term, something else that goes on. But I'm talking about your biology. So I want to be really clear about this. So feeling powerless and feeling like a victim tend to travel together, okay? And so today I'm going to use them that way because they come from the same place and they need the same solution, all right? Again, we all know I've got 40 years of experience. I've watched this pattern quietly wreck relationships, friendships, relationships to yourself, careers for decades, okay? Anyway, okay, so let's talk about where it comes from. So why do you feel powerless and like a victim? Okay, again, I'm using those terms sort of synonymously today. What you're experiencing isn't a character flaw or something. It's something your nervous system learned probably a very long time ago. Now, Martin Seligman is a psychologist I've talked about quite a bit on the podcast. He's was at University of Pennsylvania. I think he's still UPenn. I think he's still there. He's sort of the father of positive psychology, we've said, and whatever. He wrote a wonderful book called Learned Helplessness. I'm sorry, not called Learned Helplessness. Why am I forgetting the title? I'm forgetting it for some reason, because you learn how to be helpless. So anyway, I'll remember as we're talking. I'm old. I'm sorry, people. I'm old. Okay. I'll link to it in the show notes. I will, on the blog or below the video. I'll link to all the books I'm talking about and all that. Learned Optimism. See, I remembered. Stick with the old woman. Stick with me, babies. I do remember. Learned Optimism is the name of the book. That's so famous. I'm just in here alone in my office chuckling to myself, and you're along for the ride, okay? That's what we're doing right now. So Martin Seligman, the father of positive psychology, wrote a book called Learned Optimism many, many years ago. There's oh, by the way, for free on my website, just remember this, on the shop page, but it's free, don't worry, is a Learned Optimism test. It's a workshop. If you want to find out where you land and sort of what help you might need around optimism, that we can, it's the real test. It's Seligman's test. You can take it. There's a video there. It's going to take you over an hour to like watch the video, take the test, score it. I walk you through it, but it's a really great way to spend an hour, and it's really fun to do with a partner. Like you and your partner, you and your best friend or something can both, or your mom if you're close to her or whatever. It's really cool to do with other people and sort of, share your results and talk about it. But anyway, so Seligman called this victim thing learned helplessness. And it's really one of the most common and least talked about roots of powerlessness in adult relationships. Because what Seligman found, and this was groundbreaking at the time, this was, I'm going to say 92 is what I think, because I just read the study again before I write up the blog, I go back and I look, it's my favorite thing to do. It's like porn for me. I love, I get very excited when I get to read some research. So here's what Seligman found. So in his original research, what they did, it's going to sound terrible, so I'm sorry up front, but dogs were exposed to mild electric shocks. They couldn't escape. They'd put a dog in a box, right? And they put him in a box where there was mild electric shocks where they couldn't escape it. And they would put other dogs in a box with no shock, with shocks, but they could escape, right? And then, no shocks and shocks each way where you could escape it and couldn't escape it. So, but basically these dogs that were exposed to mild electric shocks that they couldn't escape, they were later placed in another box in a situation where they could easily escape, and they didn't even try. So after a while, what would happen, these poor dogs were in these boxes with these mild shocks. They would try to get out. They couldn't. And after a while, they would just sit there and whine. They would just lay down and whine. I know, it's so sad. And then later, they would put them in a box where they could easily get out and they could see that they could get out, but they wouldn't even try. This is learned helplessness. These dogs learned that their actions didn't matter, so they stopped taking action altogether. And guess what? Humans do the same thing. When you grew up in an environment where your efforts to influence what happens around you are repeatedly ignored, punished, don't work for whatever reason, your brain learns to stop trying. That's learned helplessness. It's not weakness. It's a survival adaptation. And it follows you right into your adult relationships, all of them, your friendships, your work, your career, the way you talk to yourself when things go sideways. So, and it's interesting, when I was doing the research for today, so much of it was from the 90s that I was looking at originally. I have some more current research too, of course, but it's foundational stuff that we know. I'm going to talk about Albert Bandura today and some real OGs in psychology, because this stuff, we've known it for a while. And for some reason, as new, we're always having new research. And I think we lose what we've known. I haven't talked about learned helplessness in a long time on the podcast. So, that'll tell you something right there. And it's so foundational for why you might be having trouble. And for all my new listeners, whenever I talk about the research or the amazing free download I have for today, or any links or my books or anything, you can find everything if you're watching on YouTube below the video. Just hit the more button where the description is and everything will drop down. You can also skip ahead in the video if you're sick of hearing me. And for anyone else, you can come to the website, abbymedcalf.com, go to this episode. I write a full blog for every single episode. So it's not a transcription, it's a blog, so that, because you might have someone that you're like, oh my God, I wish my husband would listen to this, or I wish my mother would, or whatever. And they don't listen to podcasts, but they would take less than 10 minutes to read a blog. You can send them the blog. I know. Or if you don't want to take notes right now and you want notes later, you can just go back to the blog and it's all right there. So it's all on my website. And there you have it, abbymedcalf.com. Go to the episodes. You'll see it. You'll find it. So how does childhood create this pattern? I always try to think of what your next question is when I'm writing these, when I'm taking my notes. So if you grew up in a high control household, all right, meaning an environment where adults made most or all of the decisions, or where your emotions were just dismissed or even punished, stop crying, I'll give you something to cry about, was in my day, where the rules were unpredictable, or the goalposts kept shifting. You get told you need to do one thing, you would do it, but then they'd say, oh, no, you need to do this too. Your nervous system adapts accordingly. And especially in kids, that's when you're doing the most growing, the most, your brain is just in an exponential mode of learning and absorbing. You're a sponge and you're literally creating your brain's pathways, right? And your nervous system pathways. So your nervous system's would have adapted. And your sense of agency. Now, we use that word a lot, right? What is, I think sometimes people go, what is agency? When I say your sense of agency, it's the felt sense that your actions can actually affect your world. That's what agency is. When we talk about agency, self-efficacy is another way we say that, right? The feeling that we can do something, that we feel efficacy. We feel like we can get efficient. We can get something done. We have the power to make something happen. So when I use that word agency a lot, please know that's what I'm talking about. And again, a felt sense. I think that's a very important part of the definition. You can feel it in your bones, like, yeah, my actions affect the world around me in some way. And if that never gets to develop properly from all the reasons I just said, you can see why we have some problems, right? So there's a developmental psychologist, Diana Baumrind. I hope I say her name right. I'm sure I'll link to it well in the show notes. She's kind of famous for this research on parenting styles. And her research shows that children raised in authoritarian homes that are high control and low warmth, okay? So a lot of control, but not a lot of lovey stuff, the warmth part, right? That she found in her research that those homes where there was a lot, and those homes usually have very thick boundaries when I talk about boundaries, right? Like you might have called your dad sir even, or whatever, or just knew like you never talked about feelings or something like that. So kids who are raised in those sort of homes, what we call authoritarian homes, high control, lots of control, what you're supposed to do, where the bar was, all that, but low warmth, not a lot of lovey-dovey, yummy yummies. Those kids consistently struggle more with self-efficacy and autonomy, with agency that I just talked about, with feeling like I can do it, feeling like I can do things on my own. They often struggle more with those things in adulthood than children raised in authoritative homes, which had clear structure. So again, like, yeah, there are rules, there's structure, but there was an emotional responsiveness, what we would call warm. We use like cold, warm, authoritarian, and what's the other side of that? I forget. It's like a matrix. It's like a little 4-box matrix. Again, I'll link to the research. You can look it up yourself too, but basically when we have, permissive, that's the other side of authoritative. So if you grow up in a home with authoritative kind of warm, when those two things come together, when there's clear structure and emotional responsiveness, and I love you, and you still have to clean your room kind of stuff, what those people as adults do the best. So, really, you're probably not listening if you grew up in that kind of home. So what this means practically is that if you didn't grow up with a felt sense of, I can affect what happens to me, you're going to move through your adult life waiting for things to happen to you rather than making them happen. Okay. So again, that's kind of that victim thing. Now, Albert Bandura, who I mentioned earlier, his research on like self-efficacy, again, agency, it's foundational in psychology. I don't know what else to say. Like I remember in the 80s reading Bandura, like Bandura's the dude, the OG. His research over and over, and his research has been replicated so many times, showed that our belief in our ability to influence outcomes is built through direct experience of doing it. That's the thing. So some homes have very permissive parents who are very warm, right? So you got a lot of, oh, you can do anything. I love you so much. You're the best. But then you didn't actually go do it because your parent made sure, and I would say this to all the parents out there who are so worried of their little babies having any negative anything and struggling and trying to take away every barrier and every pain. You actually end up with a permissive, warm household, and those children don't do well. They don't end up with a sense of agency and autonomy. They have trouble kind of getting to the next level. So, because you have to have direct experience of doing it. You really do. And so if your early experiences taught you that effort doesn't work, or that you don't have to do any effort, or that speaking up leads to punishment, or that goalposts keep moving no matter what you do, your self-efficacy gets stunted. Your again, belief in your ability to do things gets stunted, gets chopped off. You don't learn to reach for the lever, right? You don't learn to be that rat, hitting on the lever. You learn instead to kind of like brace for whatever's coming is what ends up happening. So So, okay. So what does this actually, let me just say a little more about what this actually looks like in real life or in your life. Because learned helplessness and this victim mentality, I think, are really sneaky. They don't always look like, they usually don't look like lying in bed unable to function. I don't think that's usually what they look like at all. More often, they look like you find yourself saying things like, I can't help how I feel. I can't help how I feel. I just, I had no choice. When actually, there's always choices. You just didn't like probably even feel entitled to make them, or you didn't know how to make them. If you frame relationship problems as something being done to you, oh, my partner won't change, so nothing's ever going to change. Oh, my friend always does this. My mom always makes me feel. That makes me crazier than anybody. So-and-so made me feel. Nope, nope. No one can make you feel inferior without your consent, Eleanor Roosevelt. No one can make you feel without your consent, I would say. Well, you can just stop right there. Some family member, whoever makes you feel a certain way. The language of powerlessness is, like I said, pervasive, ubiquitous. It's friggin' everywhere. It makes me a little crazy. I'm not going to lie about it. Maybe you describe, my other favorite, you describe your boundaries as being trampled all the time. We're going to come back to this one because it's one of the most important places I think this pattern hides. And boundaries are my thing. So I'm going to come back to that. But if you say, oh, my boundaries are always, he always tramples my boundaries, or she, that's victim mentality. If you cycle through the same relational dynamics over and over, choosing relationships that feel familiar, even when familiar means controlling, dismissive, or unpredictable. Yep. If you feel chronically exhausted, like you're always, perpetually fighting the unfair world, you're always the nice one, always the one that gets treated badly, always the one everyone can count on that get left holding the bag, Yeah, all this is for you, and that's all victim powerless talk. There's another researcher, she's a social psychologist, Ronnie Janoff-Bullman. She's done her work on victimization and world assumptions, I would say, is essential reading. Okay. But again, I did the reading for you if you don't want to do it, but like always, I'll link to it. But her work over and over has found that prolonged exposure to uncontrollable negative events can and will fundamentally alter how a person sees themselves in relation to the world, right? I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it? The world starts to feel malevolent, mean, scary. You start to feel unworthy or incompetent, and the future starts to feel predetermined. And when that happens, you stop looking for exits. You stop trying to jump out of the box. Those dogs, your learned helplessness is taking control, and you start accumulating evidence for the story you already believe. There's your RAS again, your reticular activating system. Yep. So what is your nervous system doing? Here's where the neuroscience, I think, becomes really important, and I hope compassionate. I'm always looking not for you to excuse your behavior, but for you to explain your behavior. Because nothing I ever say, I don't ever want you to beat yourself up. I love you. I don't ever want you to listen to one of my episodes and go, oh my God, what a POS I am or something, or I don't know. Like, no, that is never my intention. It's always my intention that you listen and feel empowered, like, and identify things so that you can change them. Because when you feel powerless in a situation, your nervous system, it's not being dramatic. It's doing exactly what you trained it to do, or what the world trained it to do. Now, I talk a lot about polyvagal theory, right? It was developed by a neuroscientist named Stephen Porges, and I've said it a few times in the podcast. I'll repeat it again because I always have new listeners. He described 3 states your nervous system moves through depending on how safe you think you are, depending on your perceived safety. So when you feel safe and connected, you're in what Porges calls the ventral vagal state. You can think clearly, you engage with others, you problem solve, you're creative, you feel like yourself. That's a lovely time to be, right? When you sense threat in any way, remember, this is your unconscious most of the time, sensing a threat, Your sympathetic nervous system kicks in with that fight or flight response. So you feel anxious, you feel activated, maybe reactive, angry, irritable, right? Impulsive, compulsive, all those goodies, okay? But when the threat feels inescapable, you drop into what Porges calls the dorsal vagal state. That's when you shut down, freeze, collapse, give up. That's the bed rotting probably. So, you know that small, pouty, defeated feeling you might be having, the one where you go back to your room or your office feeling sorry for yourself and not even sure why, not sure why you tried, not even sure why you're doing whatever. That's often a dorsal vagal response. It's not weakness. It's your nervous system's last resort attempt to protect you when it believes there's nothing you can do. It learned that lesson early. It's running that old program, but it's running it in these new situations. Okay? It's running it in your adult life. And here's the critical piece. Your nervous system can't tell the difference between that childhood home, maybe a high control childhood home, and your current relationship, your current family gathering, your current workplace. It can't tell the difference. It just knows the pattern. The moment the pattern shows up, your old wiring fires. Suddenly, right? You know this feeling. Suddenly you're not a grown adult, with resources and agency and choices. You are right back to being the kid who learned that bracing for the worst was safer than reaching. Okay? That's what happens. So let me talk about boundaries now. That seems like the next logical place to go. What's the real problem with how you think about boundaries? That's where I want to go. And I want to spend some time here because this is one of the most common places I see learned helplessness hiding in plain sight. And I think it trips people up constantly. I hear people, like I said before, she trampled my boundary. He doesn't respect my boundaries. Oh, I've tried, but they don't respect them. And here, I need you to understand this. I know you think you've made boundaries, but you haven't. Because otherwise you couldn't say that statement because you haven't made a boundary. What you've done, you stated some feelings or wishes. That's very nice. Saying, I don't like that, stop doing that, that hurt my feelings, don't speak to me that way. None of those are boundaries. I've said this over and over. They're not boundaries. They're expressions of how you're thinking and feeling. That's all it is. And that's nice. It's good. They're important, but they're not boundaries. A boundary, I've said it over and over, by definition, has what I call teeth. It includes what you will do if the behavior continues. Not what you want the other person to do, but what you will do. Okay? And let me say too, I'm also very deliberate about saying the teeth. This isn't it's not the consequence you're going to give the other person. You're not punishing someone else. Boundaries aren't about punishment. They're not about control. What do I always say? Boundaries are meant to keep people in, right? It's meant to keep people in your life so you can have some sort of healthy relationship with them. Walls are meant to keep people out. And there are times when you need a wall. That's just a wall. But a boundary is meant to keep people in. So, and they're really different. I always say it, a boundary comes from love, from a desire to somehow protect this relationship and yourself within it because you have to have it, right? So maybe it's a work relationship. You might not like your boss, but you're feeling like, I got to keep a boundary here. I got to figure this out. This isn't someone, it's not because you love your boss, but I'm still saying it's coming from love because that's love of yourself, that you want to have a healthy relationship as much as you can with your boss. And if your sister keeps bringing up your marriage after you've asked her not to, she hasn't trampled your boundary. She's just shown you she's going to keep doing what she does. Your boundary is what you do next, okay? Hey, if you keep talking about my marriage, I'm going to leave the room. I'm going to hang up the phone. I'm going to whatever. I'm not going to keep talking about this, but you have to follow through. That's your boundary, your action that you take. And when you frame boundaries as things that other people violate, you hand your power right back over to them. Yeah, you're a victim. You're helpless, right? You make your sense of safety contingent on someone else's behavior changing. You have handed over. And as long as that's true, you're gonna keep feeling powerless because you can't control them. Trust me, I've tried to control everybody in my life. That's my dream. I'm trying to control you now. That's what I'm doing. Let's get real, right? I'm a salesperson. I think I'm selling something wonderful. I'm selling you a healthy, fabulous, loving, peaceful life, fulfilling life. But I'm very energetic, enthusiastic about what I talk about because I really, I want you to change your life. I want you to be in a place where you feel empowered and happy because I think that's going to create world peace. Okay. Read it on my website. Go read my About Me page. But that's why I do what I do. But but you have to get this. Other people don't have to change ever for you to be peaceful. And peace is really always my goal, for you to feel fulfilled and okay in your life. Yeah, sorry. That's the truth of it. They get to be exactly who they are. The only variable you control is yourself. And you have to figure out what that means. It's your responsibility to hold your boundaries, not the other person's. It's yours. Okay. I wrote a whole book about it. Boundaries Made Easy. Your roadmap to connection, joy, and ease. I have a workbook, Boundaries Made, the workbook, Boundaries Made Easier, where, and by the way, the books are, if you want to buy them together, if you do want to buy them, which I highly recommend, but you don't have to, but you could. They do have different chapters in the end. So a lot of them is the same. You'll get repeat. A lot of it is repeat, although there's more in the workbook. There's a lot more work in the workbook, as you might imagine. And I changed the last sections because they're a little different. So, but anyway, I know. I try to help everywhere I can. So how do you actually start to change this? Okay, so you've recognized yourself in some of this, right? You're sitting here nodding, going, oh crap, Abby, that's me. Maybe all of this, maybe a lot of this, maybe some of this. So, you know me, I'm going to give you practical tools. And I came up with 4 today, 4 practical tools. But before I talk about them, I have to mention mindfulness. I know you're not going to get through another. Can you get through an episode without talking about mindfulness with me? I don't think so. Because if you don't notice the behaviors, I can give you every great tool there is, and you won't remember to use them. You can't change a pattern you can't see. Mindfulness is what makes everything else possible. It's not meditation. I'm not asking you to meditate, although that'd be great, but that's not what I'm asking you to do. I have a free mindfulness starter kit on the website. It's on it's on the shop page. Everything's on the shop page because just one place, whether it's free or you can buy it, doesn't matter. It's all there. It's the foundation of all this work, which is why I created it. There's thousands and thousands of people who get that every month, and I hope it helps. I am very proud of it. It's great, and it's free, so you can get that. I have another free, really wonderful download that goes right with today's episode, but you can do that one too. But let's get to the tools. So tool number 1 is you have to catch the passive language. Once you're paying attention, once you start being mindful and you're practicing mindfulness, you have to start noticing when you use language that puts you in what we call the object position in your own life. She won't let me. Things always happen to me. He says I can't, that kind of thing. I understand those phrases feel true when you say them. I get it. But you're reinforcing the neural pathway of powerlessness every single time. And I went and I was like, I know there's research on this. And there's a lot of research by James Pennebaker on language and psychological health. And it shows that the pronouns and verb constructions you use consistently shape how you process your own experience. So you have to start replacing what we call passive constructions, where you're with active ones, where you're giving away, the power, with active ones where you have the power. So it's not, he made me feel dismissed. It's, wow, I really felt dismissed. And here's what I'm going to do about that. Do you know what I mean? So you got to start making those changes. Tool number 2 is you have to separate the situation from your response to it. And this is what one of my great heroes is psychologist Viktor Frankl. He was a concentration camp survivor. Long, beautiful story there. Amazing, incredible. Oh my gosh. But he called he said the last human freedom is the space between stimulus and response. It is one of my very favorite quotes from him, and he has a million that I love. But, right, that's your last freedom, is the space you have between a stimulus, someone saying something to you, and what you respond. There's a space there. Your free will lives there. And if you haven't read Man's Search for Meaning yet, this is your sign. I mean, that he wrote that book. It's consistently in the top 10 books of all time in every list. It's pretty amazing. So if you have a minute, read Man's Search for Meaning. Okay, so when something happens that triggers that familiar, like powerless feeling, you want to pause before you react. That's really what I'm asking you to do here. Ask yourself, what do you actually have control over in this moment? Like that's what you want to do. So if you're mindful, you'll notice your mother said something about your hair, and you'll notice you're about to, come back or retreat or something, shut down or yell or whatever you're going to do. And so you want to ask yourself, what do I actually have control over in this moment? And even if the answer is small, I can change my tone of voice. Whether you stay in the conversation, whether you bring this up later, it doesn't matter what it is. That answer matters. You're exercising your agency muscle, your self-efficacy muscle, your muscle that says, I have power, and it gets stronger with use. It's a muscle. It gets stronger with use. It really, really does. Okay. And that I can say from all my years of working with clients. It's amazing how much better it gets. Tool number 3 is, I say this a lot in different ways. You want to regulate your nervous system before you decide anything. You can't access agency, personal power, empowerment from a dorsal vagal shutdown state. Right? You can't access it from there when you're just shut down, dissociated, depressed, whatever. When you're in that small, defeated, collapsed place, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for decision making, perspective taking, logic, thoughtfulness, rationality, is offline. You're running on old programming at that moment. So before you decide that you're powerless, you need to get regulated first. Okay. So usually that means slowing your exhale. So a longer out breath than in breath will activate your parasympathetic nervous system. It'll wake you up. That fight or flight system, it'll wake it up. So it'll activate your parasympathetic nervous system. In that moment, if you're shut down, it'll actually get you into sympathetic, which is that fight or flight, but then take you into parasympathetic. Okay. But anyway, so it'll activate your system enough to get you out of dorsal is really what I'm trying to say. Sorry. Out of that flat state. Right. So moving your body. So breathing in, I love the double inhale, right? And then a little sip of air at the top. And then a long, slow exhale out. Long, slow exhale. Longer exhale than the inhale is really it. Moving your body in some way. Wiggling your toes, anything. Orienting to your physical environment. Naming what you can see and hear around you. I like to pick a color. What's blue, and just looking for everything blue in the room. You can use a bilateral stimulation, like tapping, alternating tapping on your knees or something really slowly. That's part of how EMDR works, that bilateral stimulation. You get your nervous system out of the collapse first, then you look at your options, and I have a therapy to go bundle for today that I have for every episode. And I have a whole list that's going to be in there of all these kinds of things I just mentioned, but I'll say more about that at the very end. Okay. Tool number 4 is you need to build that muscle, that self-efficacy, and you do it through small, deliberate actions. Again, remember Bandura's research that I talked about before? The research is really clear. And again, it's been replicated many times. Self-efficacy is built through mastery experiences. You have to do it. You have to do the thing. So doing things that work, I don't care how small it is. If you've been living in learned helplessness for a long time, your brain needs evidence that your actions can change outcomes. And again, so start small. Don't, quit your job and go find a new. That's not the first thing you do. You want to be small. You want to be deliberate. Again, you're not going to overhaul your whole life, but by choose one area where you've been passive and take one action. Send the email you've been avoiding. Have the small conversation you've been putting off. Go for a walk around the block once after dinner. Change one routine. What you're doing is rewriting the old data. You're giving your nervous system new evidence, and it's really important that you do that. And let me say this, what I want to say, like, what should you expect as you do this work, right? Because I hear, I tried it, it didn't work, I'm going to be honest with you. Undoing learned helplessness, it's not a weekend project. The research on neuroplasticity, again, your brain's ability to change, and there's amazing work. Michael Merzenich, I think he's at MIT. I'll again, I love. Oh my God, all his research is incredible. That work coming out of his lab is clear that rewiring ingrained neural patterns takes consistent, repeated experience over time. So we're talking months, not days. I'm just putting it out there, right? What you'll notice first is not that you necessarily feel powerful. What you'll notice first is that you catch yourself faster. You see the old pattern while it's happening, not just in retrospect. That's what's going to happen. Then you'll start to have moments where you pause before the automatic response. Then eventually you'll start to choose differently in real time. Again, it's like kind of the steps. That's the work. And it's really worth it. I'm telling you, because staying in the familiar exhaustion of feeling like life is always happening to you costs you far more than the discomfort of just learning something new. Taking these seconds a day to be more mindful. I'm telling you that start with the mindfulness starter kit. Just start there. It's like 2 minutes a day. If you don't have 2 minutes, I can't help you. So, but come on. Because the bottom line is that you feel powerless and like a victim, not because you are powerless, but because your nervous system learned that lesson before you were old enough to question it. It is a learned pattern. It can be unlearned. It's not a personality trait. It's not a personality trait. So I'm trying to tell you, it is a learned pattern of behavior. You can unlearn it. Your agency was never taken away. It was like buried under a lot of very convincing evidence, that it wouldn't work. But now you know better. Now you can take different action. Okay. So let me talk about the free download for today. I do, episode season 8. This whole year I've been doing. God, we're at like 3/4 of the year through season 8. It's amazing, but and my seasons are a year, so kind of amazing. 8 years doing this, but the free download. So if you're sitting there and you're listening or reading or whatever, and you're thinking, oh my God, I need to actually figure out where I do this. That's what I thought. With the free downloads for the episodes, I try to think of like, okay, what's the very next thing someone would want to do? What's the next thing you'd want to check out? So I created, it's free. Again, it's free. It's like a 2-minute self-assessment. And I'm calling it, Am I Playing the Victim? And it's going to walk you through the specific signs of learned helplessness and victim mentality in your your relationships, your family, your work life, and the way you talk to yourself. It's really so you can see the patterns clearly before you try to change them. And you can grab it. It's going to be in a link below the video. If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Otherwise, my website, abbymedcalf.com, you can find it on the blog, the page for this episode. You'll see the page. You'll see there's a link to listen to the podcast, and there's always the full blog and all the goodies. And then I always have a therapy to go bundle. So if this whole episode is really landing with you and you want to go deeper, even deeper, I put together a therapy to go bundle. It's like, why you feel like a victim and powerless and how to change it. And here's what you're going to get in there. I always like to tell you what you're going to get. You're going to get a worksheet to identify exactly where learned helplessness shows up in your current relationships and what you can actually control in each situation. There's journaling prompts to help you uncover the origin beliefs around your sense of agency and control, that you picked up probably in your childhood somewhere. I have an agency menu, and these are like concrete micro actions for sort of common triggering scenarios that you might find yourself in with family, friends, at work. There's a boundary reality check worksheet that helps you work through the difference between a boundary you hold and a wish you're waiting for, someone else to fulfill. There's a list of things, like I mentioned earlier, that you can do to pull yourself out of those unhealthy vagal states and into a healthy dorsal vagal state. There's also that. And then there's also the free self-assessment is included. So you don't have to download it twice. So, you might get the download first, the free one, to see if you think it's good, to see if you even want to do the Therapy to Go bundle. But if you didn't, if you just like, no, this is me, I'm going to do it, then it's in there. So you don't have to download things twice. And all of that is just $10, $10. And again, you can find the link below the video or under my website, at my website under this episode. So any way you want to do that, want to do the work, it's here for you. Again, I just want to thank you for spending time with me. I can't believe we're 8 years doing this. I don't even know what episode this is. I think it's 370 something. I mean, I've been with you a long time. I feel such a strong relationship to you, and I'm so happy that you're in my life and that I'm in yours. So have an amazing week. Thank you. Thank you for spending time with me. And I really hope you do the work, because there's a beautiful life on the other side. Even if you've spent your whole life in this other way, you will be amazed at how quickly you can change it and how much better you will feel physically, mentally, spiritually, every level. All right. Mwah. Love you so much. Have an amazing week, and I'll talk to you real soon.